in the children. We'll be sitting somewhere ordinary, her cable, my parking lot, and one of us will say, that winter, exactly which one. We were 23. Both of us were cubs in a town that felt like it exhaled everything interesting about itself years before we arrived. Dana was a substitute teacher. I was doing inventory at a hardware store. We'd been best friends since college, ended up in the same nowhere place people sometimes do. Pulled by cheap rent and inertia. Trail was her idea. She'd read about it in some local outdoors blog. This converted railroad corridor through the woods outside of town. Old trestle bridge over a creek. Good photos, the blog. It was a Monday in February, day off. And the sky was that pale, washed-out blue that makes you feel guilty for staying inside. I don't know why I remember pulling into the parking area so close. Dana was already out of my car, me out, hiking boots crunching the frozen gravel, her breath coming out in little clouds. The trail was beautiful in a desolate way, bare hardwoods on either side, ground frozen solid, sound muffled except voices and the occasional bird, everything and nothing for students. A guy I'd been seeing who never texted back, what we were going to do with our lives. The kind of conversation that things. The bridge gradually through the trees, old iron, maybe 150 feet across, spanning the creek below. The wood planking between the rails was weathered and there were gaps. And you can see the frozen creek 30 feet. It looked like a photograph, now before we even reached it. We crossed slowly, stopping in the middle. The wind came through the valley hard and direct, and I remembered higher. Below us, the creek ice had that blue-green color of deep cold. I took some pictures too. I texted them. She replied with the heart emoji. Exactly when I noticed them. That's the thing I've come to so many times. In the dark. In therapy once for about 6 months. The moment. It was just suddenly there. On the near end of the bridge. The end we'd come from. Standing at the point where the trestle met the trail. He hadn't been there when we crossed. Maybe he had and we didn't look back. An ordinary looking man. I always land on. Medium height. Medium aged. Wearing a dark jacket. He had his hands in his... He was looking at us. People hike trails. People cross bridges. Myself this immediately. Automatically. The way your brain reaches for the explanation lets you stay calm. But he didn't cross. He just stood there. Something about the stillness of the way he wasn't fidgeting. Wasn't checking. Wasn't doing the things a person does when they're simply waiting. Something about that pressed against the side of my chest like a thumb. Dana, I said. Yeah, she said. She'd already seen him, in the middle of the bridge. To get back to the parking area, we had to go toward him. The other direction led deeper into the woods, far bank that I remembered. Just tree line and frozen slope. I think about the math of the moment more than anything else. Geometry of it. How a position that feels like the middle of nowhere is really just a coordinate, and how it reached from multiple directions. And let's keep going, Dana said. Her voice was careful, and even in a way that meant she was working to keep it in that way. She meant keep going forward, toward him, to the bank, to the trail. Footsteps on the planking sounded enormous. The gaps between the boards showed the creek below. I kept my eyes forward. We were maybe 40 feet from him when he took his hands out of his pockets. Nothing was in that registered some relief. But the gesture itself was wrong. Too deliberate. Like something that had been rehearsed. His eyes hadn't moved from the entire time. Then the sound. Someone.
Y'all better get the fuck. I seen all these red flags, bro. You feel me? It's only the two of y'all. This nigga just show up out of nowhere and y'all on the fucking bridge. Don't you know that you gotta get the fuck out of there? Oh, I forgot. Y'all white. It looks like y'all white. Yeah, y'all never went around for shit thinking like I about to fucking change that nigga heart. Boy, yeah.
On the road above the bank. an engine
Yes.
hunting, a truck door slamming, that specific bang that two or three of them. Loud axed. The way people are just arrived somewhere and hadn't settled into quiet yet. It was nothing, just other hikers showing up. Ordinary people on an ordinary afternoon. But the sound changed something in the air. The men looked up toward the road, just for a second, and then he stepped off the bridge and turned and walked back up the trail. We walked off that bridge fast. Neither of us ran. It felt important not to run. Like running would confirm some back. We reached the bank, turned up the trail after him. It was maybe 200 feet ahead of us, walking at a normal pace. He never looked back. In the parking lot, pulling in as he left. 3 people climbing out, already laughing about something. A dog jumping the truck bed. They had no idea. They never would. Dana and I sat in the car for a long time without speaking. I kept thinking the timing of it. The way the truck door slammed the exact moment it did. Forget gas on the way, or left 5 minutes later. We would still have been on that bridge. Just the 3 of us in the wind and the creek below. No witnesses. No reason for him to stop. He'd been about to do. I don't use the word about to lightly. I've thought about it long enough to mean it. He would himself at the only way off that bridge, taking his hands out of his pockets, and he'd been waiting for us to collect him. I think it's the only reason we're here. We should go, Daly said. Yeah, I said. I started the car. We never reported it. There was nothing to report. A man stood on a bridge and looked at it. That's all. We told ourselves this the whole drive home. We told ourselves this for months. I told myself this for years. Right up until I was scrolling the news one evening and saw a face I recognized above a headline, and the room went very quiet around me, and I sat there for a long day now. The headline said he'd been arrested, that he'd lived in town for years, that he worked at a pharmacy, a pharmacy, the kind of ordinary job, ordinary place that means someone probably handed prescriptions and made small talk and never thought twice. That out for a walk together and never come home. Connected to him, that he had been there all along, embedded in life of the community the whole time. We already knew. She'd an hour before. Wouldn't say anything else for a while. My window, October trees were freaking bare. I thought about the bridge, the creek below it, the blue of the ice. I thought about the adults laughing, sailing through the cold air at exactly the right moment. I still think about that sometime, that if that truck hadn't pulled it, I don't think Dana and
was you. Maybe that was you. Let you know you gotta get out of there. That was boy. It's very terrible. Yeah, you should leave immediately. Immediately.
her before it got dark and sat on it. About an hour into the night, though, I realized I had forgotten to collect the sticks to keep the fire going with. So I got the perimeter of my campsite, grabbing any small dry sticks off the ground. And that's when a voice, a quiet whisper from the dark just ahead of me. I didn't have a flashlight on me, and it was pitch dark out there. And the voice was quick and not long enough for me to know exactly where it came from or even what they said. It didn't feel like they were talking to me, though. A little spooked and ran back to the camp. As the minutes passed, I tried to reason with myself that it couldn't have been a person, that the wind had just made a strange whisper-like sound. But when I heard the scream from last night, I could no longer convince myself with all of these excuses. Safe. Someone was there, watching my campsite. I sat for another hour, trying to think over my options. Only two real options. Stay and hope whoever is out there leave alone until morning, or leave in the middle of the night. At the time, leaving in the middle of the night seemed like a worse idea, allowing the person to follow or get close to me without me being able to see them, and leaving myself completely vulnerable. So if they really did have bad intentions, I'd only be helping them by dark. But when I went out to collect sticks earlier, I didn't get enough to last before hearing the whisper and running back. And now the fire was getting lower. I got up and walked to the edge of the light, beginning to reach down and get more sticks. I got maybe another hour worth of wood before I heard that voice again. This time, I'd been smart enough to bring myself shined it in the direction of the voice. It was very underwhelming though. It was almost useless, not reaching far and not brightening the area as much as I thought it would. After a few seconds, I got scared and ran back to the campfire and made sure it stayed lit. The nerves kept building. I was